For more on the campaign and politics in general, we're pleased to be joined from Newsmax Washington by Ohio Congressman Warren Davidson. And Congressman Davidson is a member of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, as well as the Committee of Small Business, and he is a graduate of West Point. Warren, we really appreciate your time today here on America Talks Live, and it's great to have you.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
You betcha. You have had, I think, a unique idea on how VA healthcare could improve exponentially, and I will get to your legislation in just a few minutes. But first, we got to talk about the campaign. There was Donald Trump last night in your home state, up in Canton, with a rally where he really seemed to be on his game. Let's listen to what he had to say here, and then we'll get your reaction.
So this morning, CNN came out, or Bloomberg came out, and we were 48 to 43 up. And then we just got one a little while ago, and that was a big one, and that was 48 to 43. So these polls are seeming to be pretty close. We have one that just came out in Florida, a big one, CNN. I believe it was CNN. And that one is up 3 in Florida.
So there is Donald Trump talking about the polls improving for him in your home state of Ohio, just how crucial that state is, and also the other critical state of Florida. I just want to ask you right now about Ohio. Obviously, you make it your home, and there's been a bit of turbulence, and I guess that's to put it diplomatically, with John Kasich, my old House colleague, now your governor, who ran for president and who has been reluctant to endorse Mr. Trump. How do you guys deal with that? I mean, because obviously you want to see a united front. And I don't mean to put you on the spot about Kasich. I guess you can only talk about your own situation. So why don't you just tell me how you're handling things there in your district of Ohio?
Yeah, I'm voting for Trump. I'm excited. He offers our party the best path forward. He's the only guy on the ballot that's going to have an opportunity to beat Hillary Clinton. He's got a message that is America first, and he's got a good track record of making decisions that reinforce what he's been talking about so far. So with respect to Mike Pence, great choice. Everyone's speculated he's going to build a strong team. Mike Pence is very well respected and definitely added some strength to the ticket. And, you know, he went a long way talking about Supreme Court justices. And the methodology that he's done this has been collaborative. And really even his economic policy. He had an initial policy, and he went back to the drawing board. He did that in collaboration with the House. And essentially, the economic plan, the tax part of his plan that he's got right now is essentially Kevin Brady's tax plan, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. So I think he's going to be a great guy to work with. I look forward to seeing him serve as our next president.
And obviously, he will be atop the ticket. But I'm just curious, is Governor Kasich's reluctance affecting any of these down ballot races like yours? You won in a special election to succeed former House Speaker John Boehner, and now you've got to get ready to run again in November. Is it creating a challenge for you, or you're just kind of a guy who lays it out there and people will support you accordingly?
Yeah, I think people are starting to look at the races for their individual merit. You know, Rob Portman's had a lot of attention in his race and a lot of concern about that, because holding the Senate is very critical for the same reasons with respect to the Supreme Court. But, you know, Rob Portman's got a former governor as an opponent, and that race was initially tight. And Rob Portman's really continued to build his own brand, explain who he is, and has continued to widen his lead to the point where the Democrats are pulling their funding from Strickland in the state. So that's encouraging news. And I think in our race, it's the same sort of thing. Don't have strong data on how Kasich's actions are being quantitatively affecting the ballot, but anecdotally, in terms of talking with people, I think there's a strong recognition that Governor Kasich is popular in our state. He won the state very decisively in his last gubernatorial race. He won solidly in the presidential primary. But there's a lot of frustration. People would really love to see him support our party's nominee. He pledged to do that. And his support would really make a difference, I think.
Well, I'm so
But I
glad you
think
can
everyone's
state
kind of
it.
moving past that.
Yeah, you're stating it in a very positive and diplomatic way. And I served with John Kasich. I saw firsthand how effective he was on the Budget Committee in my early days in the House. And I'm going to say this is not coming from you, but I am very disappointed that John Kasich has not endorsed Mr. Trump and has cast his lot with the so-called never Trumpers. Let me put it this way. I'll try to be constructive. I hope he will reconsider, especially as we head down the home stretch of this race now, about 50 days remaining between now and Election Day. Tell you what, let's go to the phones at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629 to Harrison, Arkansas, where we find Tim on the telephone. Hi, Tim.
Hi.
Go right
Hello.
ahead, sir.
Listen, I called in because I wanted to make a comment about the Flint, Michigan pastor that interrupted Donald Trump. When I saw that as a Christian, the first thing that I thought of was she really was wrong in stating that we asked you to come here to thank us, not give a political speech. And my question is, did Jesus go around looking for a pat on the back?
Well, it is interesting to talk about theology, and it is interesting to take a look. Obviously, those of us who are Christians want to be more Christ-like. I thought the exchange last night, Tim, or the video recordings I saw of what happened yesterday afternoon in Flint, Michigan, showed Donald Trump in a way we had not seen him, because whatever the intent of that Flint pastor was, if it was to try and provoke Mr. Trump, he answered with a smile. And of course, we also read in Scripture that the best way to handle adversaries is with a gentle word, a smile, and in that way you heap burning coals on their head, as a figure of speech. And I think Mr. Trump was very effective with that humble posture. So that was my take on it. Let me ask the congressman, Warren, as you're doing town halls, and we know, especially now, the Democrats have picked an opponent for you, and we know the drill. You go in to do a town hall, the left sends in people trying to entrap you in certain ways. How do you handle that when you're out doing your town hall meetings?
You know, the same thing. You try to give a candid answer and, try to make more of the issue than it merits. But you got to give a candid answer. And I think, Donald Trump stayed focused. And I think that's something that's encouraging. And that's part of the reason why you're seeing him improve in the polls. He's really dialing his game in.
Well, your experience prepared you for service in the House of Representatives, and you wasted no time in introducing a piece of legislation that, dare I say, is provocative, but it gets people thinking. Tell us about what you would do in terms of VA health care and members of Congress.
Well, we introduced the Lead by Example Act, and it's got a very simple, it's short enough to tweet. Congress shall have no other health benefit than the VA health benefit, effective January 3rd, 2019. And the point of that is to lead by example. It's a bipartisan issue. Members of both parties, or frankly, multiple parties, all four on the ballot this year, Green, Libertarian, Democrat, Republican, even the Socialist Party with Bernie Sanders was supporting it. So last night we took votes, 400 plus for most of the VA votes last night. So there's a strong desire in Congress to see improvements in the VA. It's a bipartisan issue. And what this bill does is say, hey, we are not happy with the level of progress, just like a lot of our veterans aren't happy with the level of progress. But we're willing to lead by example. We're going to live with the same benefits that you have. And we will, one of the best cures for the VA right now from the VA committee is continued thorough oversight. And what better way than to do that than to, rather than have one committee focused on oversight of the VA, than every member of Congress and their staff to live with VA healthcare benefits. We would know real time what the performance is like all over the country.
And boy, you really hit on it, Warren, and maybe you've experienced this too, since for all intents and purposes, we now have a commuter Congress, and when you don't have votes, you're back home in your district, and the way you get back to Ohio from D.C. is aboard aircraft, passenger aircraft, and so many of us have to fly, and of course I used to fly in from Arizona, so you'd see firsthand what kind of job the airlines are doing, some of the problems in airports. So I think there is a stroke of genius to your bill saying, members of Congress, you live under VA health care, you'll be able to see it, and changes will come because you folks in Congress are in position to hold the VA accountable. About a minute for your last word on this, Warren.
Yeah, that's the exact intent. And so what it does not do is prescribe exactly what needs to take place in order to make it work. So what I don't want to do is create a giant backlog on a system that's already backlogged with a bunch of new entrants into the system. So that's why there's a 2-year lag for the entry. And then it requires the VA to come back and work with Congress over the next year to draft language to implement it. And so we would spend this year working together. For example, there are 7 different ways veterans can access a choice to use a different facility than one of the VA facilities. So the Choice Act 2 years ago was designed to let people who live more than 40 miles away from a VA center have access to their local community. This would be a great opportunity to get that system working the way it was intended to. It's been slow to get implemented correctly. Veterans are having trouble getting their bills paid. This would be a chance to harmonize those 7 things, but it doesn't say how exactly to do it. It leaves a lot of low-hanging fruit for us to really make some significant improvements and be able to have continuous monitoring.
The whole notion is leading by example. You learned it at West Point. You're applying those lessons in the Congress of the United States. Warren Davidson, who succeeded former Speaker John Boehner in that district in Ohio. Warren, we appreciate your time from Newsmax, Washington.